interest updates, and we are lucky to have DISA come and speak about their cloud-based internet isolation program. It's really interesting from an acquisition perspective, and we have two speakers that will be joining us, Vanessa McCollum and Ron Patel. Just a quick nod to our leadership team. Thank you to our government and industry chairs for their continued support. One quick note here, we have a new communications chair, Nicole Santorio. So if you see her emailing or with communications, welcome Nicole, we're happy to have you on board. We're going to review our acquisition COI projects. So our emerging technologies and the acquisition process is a collaboration with the emerging technologies COI. And then as always, we're always looking for volunteers to help with the Securing the Supply Chain program and a new project around the federal acquisition regulations. So we're going to engage in federal and industry representatives to review and assess and provide some responses to FAR cases and the proposed rules. If you have any questions about these, feel free to reach out to the ACT-IAC COI, to Nancy Delanoci, or either of the COI leads here. Our monthly reminder that you could, if you'd like, go to your dashboard and check out ACT-IAC's weekly digest. These are the steps for how to get that weekly email. I wouldn't get it daily, but you can. And this way you can never miss the next meeting or set of meetings that you're interested in. Today we have with us some esteemed speakers from DISA. So Vanessa McCollum is a 22-year Air Force veteran. For the past 14 years, she has been working at the Defense Information Systems Agency. Vanessa is a member of the Defense Information Technology Contracting Organization, DICO, at Scott Air Force Base. She has served 4.5 years as Chief, DICO Europe, from August 2014 until February 2018. Her current position is Chief Emerging Technologies, the Special Interest Contracts and Pricing Division, and a Contracting Officer and Agreements Officer. Joining her is Ronak Patel. He's been working at DISA for 3 years. He currently serves as a computer scientist within DISA's Emerging Technologies Directorate. Ron is also a member of the DISA's Next Level Leader program. So give me a moment here. We'll say thank you, Vanessa and Ron, for coming and speaking to us today about the cloud-based internet isolation program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. I think you want me to advance?
Sure. So I'll kick us off with what is cloud-based internet isolation. And as you can see on your screen, it transfers internet browsing sessions from your traditional desktop to a secure isolated cloud platform. Now, what does that mean? If you're going to cartoonnetwork.com, let's say, for example, you can see that little spider web that's in your lower right-hand corner. It basically is telling you that, hey, you're going to cartoonnetwork.com, but you're also connected out to these several hundred different sites, which may be, adware, malware, tracking, etc. That's collecting all this data based off what you're doing on that website. And with that comes the potential for malicious code. So to isolate that threat, what DISA did was we took the browsing that happens on your desktops to a secure cloud. And now every time you try to go to anything that is non-mission essential, the cloud server then establishes the connection with that website and you're connected to the cloud. So the cloud does all the rendering in case there is a potential for malicious code that is executed before it would execute on your endpoint, and hence you would have, Trojans, malwares on your computer, and then it's hard to get off your network, exposing vulnerabilities in your network. So now it's detonated in a cloud. And when it's detonated in a cloud, we've created sessions, individual sessions per users, so that if something does go wrong, that session can be destroyed and the user is completely safe. So is the network that the user is coming from. Some of the capabilities you see right there on your left-hand side are native modern browser integration, which means it integrates into whatever your current browser is, right? So Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, whatever you may have. Some of the biggest benefits that we've seen from DISA or over a 30-day period, we've removed about 150,000 file downloads that would happen on the DoD network. And they didn't just vanish. We've established something called remote document viewing, which is safe document creation. And it just renders the PDF or whatever file you're trying to download in the cloud before allowing you to download it to say, hey, is this the file you want to see, or is this the file you want, which has saved, of course, bandwidth. We've also seen about 142 malicious files be blocked, and we've seen about 3,300 malicious URLs that were also stopped within that 30-day segment. Other than that, that's a quick overview of CBII, and we can go right over to Vanessa.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Vanessa McCollum, and I'm the Agreements Officer for the CBII Prototype and Production OTAs. I'd like to provide a brief background of the CBII OTA. In an effort to rapidly develop and test candidate solutions, the CBII team was the first to utilize DISA's new authority for the use of other transaction for prototype projects. DISA received its authority in late 2017, and we started working with the CBII team in the summer of 2018. So this project was the first OTA that we exercised within the agency and within the contracting organization. Why use OTAs? Well, OTAs are geared toward innovation work and they afford the opportunity to rapidly develop and test candidate solutions. CBII was a perfect candidate for being an OTA because of what we were, what we did through the prototype, how we worked the prototype, and were able to provide the technical requirements, and and then if things weren't going the way that we thought they should from a technical perspective, we were they were very flexible, and be able to course correct as needed. In response to our solicitation, DISA received in excess of 35 white papers, and we awarded 2 prototype OTAs. After awarding the prototype, we collaborated with the 2 vendors, provided our technical requirements. We worked mutually with the vendors and wrote and agreed upon the project work statement, and tested the 2 solutions through the onboarding of initial test users, and eventually with the onboarding of up to 50,000 users per prototype. In response to the pandemic, flexibility was paramount and allowed us to rapidly increase the number of users onboarded and to meet DoD mission and decrease bandwidth in a maximum telework environment. So we were very fortunate that we had the CBII prototypes, ongoing as we, as the pandemic hit, and the DoD had to look at how they were going to continue with the mission and keep people safe, and CBII was instrumental in this. So DISA's authority, OTA authority, comes from 10 U.S.C. 2371B, which allows DoD to carry out OTs for prototype projects. The authority allows the DoD the flexibility necessary to adopt and incorporate business practices that reflect commercial industry standards and best practices into its award instruments. And that's exactly what we were able to accomplish with CBII. Once the prototype was successfully completed, DISA awarded a non-competitive production OTA, and there's certain things that have to be met in order to go into a follow-on non-competitive production. The prototype agreements had to be competitively awarded. Offers were put on notice at the very beginning in the solicitation process that that it was our intent to award a follow-on production OT, and the prototypes were successfully completed. So in order to be compliant with 10 U.S.C. 2371B, The prototype must carry out prototype projects that are directly relevant to enhancing the mission effectiveness of military personnel and the supporting platform, system, components, or materials proposed to be acquired or developed by the Department of Defense, or the improvement of those platform systems, components, or materials in use by the armed forces. So prototype OTAs must satisfy one of 4 conditions. The first condition is there's at least one non-traditional defense contractor participating to a significant extent in the prototype project. For CBII, one of the prototype vendors was a small business. The other prototype, the vendor was a large business, but their sub-vendor was a small business. The second condition is all significant participants in the transaction, other than the federal government, are small businesses or non-traditional defense contractors. The third condition, at least 1/3 of the total cost of a prototype project is to be paid out of funds provided by parties other than the federal government if the first 2 conditions are not met. So if there's not a non-traditional or a small business that's performing a significant portion of the work. And then finally, the last condition is the senior procurement executive for the agency must determine in writing that exceptional circumstances justify the use of a transaction that provides for innovative business arrangements or structures that would not be feasible or appropriate under a contract, or would provide an opportunity to expand the defense supply base in a manner that would not be practical or feasible under a FAR-based contract. So what are OTAs? So OTAs are non-FAR-based acquisitions that result in an agreement. The OTA process also has greater flexibility than standard FAR-based contracting, and they're geared toward innovation work and targeted to non-traditional defense contractors and small businesses. As I said before, large businesses must have small or non-traditionals performing a significant portion of the work or enter into a cost-sharing arrangement with the government. So one thing that 2371B leaves very open is there is no definition for what a significant portion of the work is. It could be, that one of the non-traditionals or small businesses bring a capability that the large business or the prime does not have, and that prototype could not be successful without that piece of the performing in the prototype. So it's every OTA is different, and the solutions are different. So the agreements officers determine based on a particular solution what a significant portion of the work typically means. So we used the OTAs to pilot 2 CBII prototype solutions and then implemented a CBII solution for the DoD through award of the production OTA. So we saw many benefits of the CBII prototype OTAs. First off, it provided a great collaborative relationship early in the acquisition strategy and assessment phase between the contracting office and the program office, and then later between the government and the vendors, which drastically reduced our acquisition timelines. The result was the fielding of 2 leading capabilities through the award of the 2 prototype OTAs, which provided DISA a metrics-driven approach to select a product that best met the operational and financial objectives of the program. The flexibility of the OTA process afforded the CBII team the ability to work closely and collaboratively with both vendors to finalize the technical requirements and to begin implementing their respective solutions. The CBII solutions demonstrated successful completion of the prototype OTAs. Each solution met milestones of the CBII project and accomplished a particularly favorable outcome in terms of increasing the DISA and DoD cybersecurity posture, provided bandwidth savings and bandwidth reduction, and reduced congestion at the DISA and the DoD internet access points. So in closing, DISA continues to set the tone for DoD acquisition and all federal procurement through innovative contracting techniques. The collaboration between our vendors and DISA and the flexibility afforded in OTAs are key to successfully completing our prototype projects. Being a trusted industry partner, our vendors, with our vendors means that they help us to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And our industry partners can do this by giving us the best value and the best product possible. Just so that everybody is aware, we use Cybercom's Dreamport website to post our OTA requirements. This website is located at https://dreamport.tech. I'd like to thank you for inviting Ron and I to speak today about CBII and DISA's use of the OTAs. It was exciting to see the benefits of CBII realized during the prototype phase and to move one of the solutions out to the DoD through the award of the production OTA. OTAs for us will remain a very important part of the acquisition and contracting toolbox to solve current and future problem sets. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Vanessa. That was a ton of good information. I do want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, so keep that in mind as we go through the Q&A portion. And if you want to post your questions at any time in the chat to be addressed, you can either directly to me, Lisa Sellers. Some of you have already figured that out, and I have some waiting here for me, or to everyone if you'd like. So I think, Vanessa, one of the questions that's already come across is you got 35 white papers and you put in 2 prototype OTAs. How did you determine those the 2 prototypes that you chose?
So our solicitation provided, our evaluation criteria, how we would down select. And we had a team of technical experts that went through the white papers, and we were able to down select to the 2 that seemed to be the most promising.
Great. And another question, I think at a different level, but I'll go ahead and ask, did you use your own OTA or go through a consortium?
No, we do all of our own OTAs. We have not established a consortium at this point. Not to say that we won't in the future, but right now we are doing everything, soliciting, and we're getting a lot of good responses. So right now a consortium for us would probably would not be any better than what we're getting right now. So.
And it sounds like you probably know more about consortiums than I do, but in my limited purview, I think we can explain to everybody that some OTAs go through consortiums or small groups that maybe have members, companies that are members that serve as a general distribution point for specific OTAs. Is that close?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so you guys have the most flexibility and anyone can respond to your OTAs.
That's correct.
Great.
And then using the Dreamport website, that has really benefited us by reaching out and reaching some of the non-traditional defense contractors that we were looking for.
That's great. I have another question. It says, news sources are boasting 100% increase in OTA usage in recent years. Did you find any surprises along the way? And do you think you'll continue to use more OTAs in the future?
Well, every requirement that we come in, if a program office wants to use an OTA, we will vet that to make sure, it meets the the criteria established in the statute. And if it is, OTAs have been very successful for us to this point. We've awarded several prototypes and we've awarded 2 productions so far. So, you know, as I said, you know, we will continue to keep this in our toolbox to use, you know, whenever, you know, it proves to be, you know, the most beneficial acquisition strategy.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more questions in the chat, so feel free to add some, all 36 participants. In the meantime, I noticed that you said the production OTA was already awarded. Do you think in the future that you will move like O&M of this product to a traditional FAR-based contract?
So our the production OTA is O&M, and you know, and it's a 5-year period of performance. So when this production OTA is you know, gets close to be ready to expire, then it will be competed as a FAR-based contract.
All right, I'm getting more questions in, so thank you everyone for being collaborative. Does DISA, here we go, is a good one. This one's from Simon to everyone, so I'm assuming I can say this question's from Simon. Does DISA own the cloud-based internet isolation solution that was developed, and will it be limited to only DISA and DoD use, or will the production implementation be something ultimately made available to other agencies?
So other federal agencies can, you know, can contract, you know, for this solution. You know, no, we don't own it. Our sub in the production is Menlo Security, and they provide this out in the commercial sector, and you know, are looking at other federal agencies as well. Our solution is for the DoD.
Thank you. That was a great answer. I guess I have another question to go through. Did you have to determine the evaluation criteria or the requirements before your prototype, or were you able to incorporate lessons learned from your prototype experience into the production OTA?
Well, we had evaluation criteria to down select and award the prototypes, but as we went through the prototype, and the prototype lasted about 15 months. And then as we were getting ready to take it into production, you know, we worked with the vendor to, you know, and collaboratively again, wrote the PWS and, you know, and incorporated new requirements as part of the lessons learned from the prototype. So yes.
Again, giving you the maximum amount of feedback and flexibility.
Correct.
To deploy in production. It's amazing. So Ron, I know you've been quiet. I was going to ask another question about the actual prototype implementation. How did you decide technically, or did you, which users went on each prototype, or did you have sub factions of groups that were volunteers?
So originally when we were going through that dilemma, we were saying, hey, do we just pick names out of a hat, or how do we do this? And we migrated our own network first behind CBII. And we kind of just took random groups that we thought would give us technical feedback, functionality feedback, usability feedback, and placed them in different groups. And we just diversified it that way. There was no real methodology besides, hey, I know a group of technical folks over here, or I know a group of folks that complain about websites over here. And we kind of just mixed and matched.
sometimes you get the best results that way. How did you collect the feedback? Was there a centralized mechanism? I'm assuming, did it all come to you?
So we did collect numerous feedback. We had surveys that were sent out through one of our internal tools to the users. Mostly when something goes wrong, that's when users speak up. If everything's going smoothly, you don't really hear from it because it's natively integrated. So you don't really see any difference when you're going to this website, other than sometimes the user would say, hey, I got a block message, and it would be us blocking something, or my video's not loading, or this website's not loading. And that's when we would hear about it. But most of the feedback was so smooth. We just didn't want to jinx it. So we kind of always knocked on wood.
That's fair. And this wasn't a small scale effort. I think you guys mentioned 50,000 users on each of the prototypes at one point. Did you have a central help desk, or did they all go to their mainline defense help desk first? How did you organize that?
We did have our central help desk that was involved. We did give them updates periodically saying, hey, if a user comes with this kind of stuff, please let us know, or hey, allow them to do this and it should fix the issue. And if it doesn't, then contact the program office and we'll get it solved. But yes, the help desk was an essential factor in the success of CBII.
It sounds like it was. Can you give us stats on how many people are currently using the production OTA, if it's already been implemented?
I will refer that to Vanessa.
So it is being implemented, with 3.5 to 4 million users. It takes time to onboard. So we're going through the onboarding process as we speak.
Will be no small feat.
Correct.
Amazing. I am getting a question. That's a direct message I don't quite understand. Is it possible to understand the lessons learned about the prototype information? I'm not sure what that question refers to. You can either send me more information or to the group, but I guess along those lines, did you guys document any lessons learned as you went through the prototype information process, or it seemed like it was quite iterative?
It was iterative, and some of it, quite a bit of it is proprietary information on each of the vendor solutions. So I really would not want to get into a discussion about that. But I think the biggest lesson learned for us was the ability to openly collaborate with the vendors. And that's not something that you typically do on a FAR-based contract. So and the flexibility that we had to make course corrections, or if there was a different security protocol that was needed, we were able to pivot pretty quickly, and get that instituted. Anything else, Ron, that you can think of?
Without getting into the nitty gritty, I think exactly what you said. It was more collaborative than anything, and we created a lot of good from having both vendors on the OTA, and it was a true blessing to be a part of it. So without going deeper, I'm going to keep it at that.
Well, it sounds like it was a really good experience. And I don't think you can get any better of a situation where you get to deploy 50,000 users on two separate platforms and really compare the problems that you have amongst a diverse set of users. So I'm sure that was really interesting and allowed you to account for a lot more error correction and multiple device configurations.
Right.
All right, I have another question coming in. What reduction in impact on the internet access points are you seeing again for CBII? Do you have any projections?
Sure. So From a bandwidth reduction standpoint, we're seeing about 21% from the same 30-day metric that I was speaking about earlier. I would assume that number goes up, but it's all after we capture the latest data. So as more users come on board, I would assume bandwidth reduction is at a benefit.
Right. And I think you also mentioned earlier, that's not the only benefit, but you're also more secure because all the downloaded attachments or all the downloaded data is not residing on the network, right?
Yes, so users are prompted with the option of actually downloading a safe version of that PDF or whatever it may be, where it scrubs the entire file and removes all the per se code where it says, hey, we're connecting out here or there, or whatever it may be. Or they have the option to download the original. And what we've seen is, folks don't actually need the file itself. They just want to browse the content or read through it to see if it's the correct one. And if it's not, we save a download from happening into the network. And over that same 30-day period, we saw about 150,000 files that didn't get downloaded because users decided not to, or they said, hey, this was sufficient and I got my information and that's all I needed.
It's hard to quantify that, but I think it definitely reduces your threat exposure and keeps the network safer.
Yep.
You can tell we have some of our friends from the Emerging Technologies COI also joining us. I'm glad you came, Ron, to help us answer some of these questions. All right. Another question, has there been any impact on the performance for the safe download approach?
So performance meaning does the file render differently, or I mean, when you look at the file, unless you're looking through it so rigorously that you're seeing exactly where that file came from, the header, all of that, you don't really see a difference to the normal user. It's hey, this is my PDF, or this is my leave and earning statement maybe, and yep, my bank balance got the money, so we're good to go. You don't really see a big difference.
Sounds very successful.
Yeah, as a non-technical person, and having CBII, I do not see a difference. If I go out to the internet, I think I'm on the internet, and everything is just as fast as it was before. It's very seamless to the user.
That sounds great. We have another question. Are there any security measures being bypassed by using CBII, or are there other mechanisms being put in place? At the internet access points. I'm not sure I exactly understand, but did you have to put in any additional security measures because you're, I guess, not using the traditional internet access points?
So we are still writing our traditional internet access points out of the network, and we did not have to add any security measures there. Everything that was in place before is still in place now, because if you are still trying to download anything into the DoD network, it will still run through all of our security stacks, all of our security tools that are at the IAPs, but those same mechanisms are also in the cloud that Menlo has provided in the cloud. So it's kind of, you're doing a double check, but it's not slowing anything down. We went through tremendous captures to ensure that, hey, we weren't slowing the network down, or we weren't degrading it at all to make CBII work, if that answers your question.
We're getting follow-up IMs. I'm trying to summarize as best I can. Do the downloads come from the cloud instead of from the original location for the download?
We would have to go onto a whiteboard for me to show you how that happens. And I am not sure if I'm able to speak about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And we expect some of those kinds of answers when we get into these technical solutions in these forums. We have a couple of other questions. The user's also apologizing for asking any questions that you didn't want to answer. Can you reveal whether or not this is AWS or a hybrid cloud or other being used? It sounds like it's a wholly owned solution, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a SaaS solution. I don't think they'll reveal what their cloud posture is, right?
Correct.
All right. Here's another question. You can tell us you don't want to, cannot answer it at this time if you want to run. Is there any interaction with cloud access points?
Not to my knowledge, but I wouldn't deem it out. It may happen in the future. We did transition this program into a production environment. So, yep, I'll leave it at that.
Sure. And sending us back towards an acquisition focus. I know you say that every, Nancy, every requirement gets its own designation. Do you have any suggestions or lessons learned around the kinds of requirements that you think DISA typically moves towards OTAs more than other ones? I mean, clearly maybe technology solutions, something where you can build a prototype would be advantageous, but are there any other lessons learned or hints that you could give our acquisition folks on reasons why you'd use an OTA?
Well, the OTA, we would look at the OTA process for requirements, like you just said, that where we would build out a prototype, which is a lot more flexible in the OTA environment than it is in a FAR-based contract. So it really just depends on the requirement and how it meets the conditions set in the statute on whether we would consider it for an OTA. But the flexibility and the collaboration and just the process for taking something that may be a commercial solution and bringing it into the DoD and trying and establishing all of the the security protocols and and modernize or change a platform. That's the type of stuff that we really look at that could be good candidates for OTAs. And CBII being our first one, was I think the best one to to start the process with. And we do look at a lot. I think our besides technology, but cybersecurity is a big thing, and so we look at things like that. The program offices within DISA, will come to us and with a requirement or and we will sit down and we'll talk about it, whether it's a good candidate for the OTA process or not, and then we go from there.
That sounds really collaborative, and again, kind of goes to the nature of the OTAs. Mm-hmm. I had a question about, you mentioned early on the rules about using an OTA and about how if you didn't have any of these underused or not disadvantaged, but these non-traditional people in the mix, that there was a requirement to have 1/3 of the cost be an investment. Do you have to reveal that if that's the case for anyone that you award the OTA to?
So one of the criteria when we put out a request for white papers is for respondents to tell us how they meet the requirements of the statute. And so you know, they may have, it may be a large business and they have one small business or non-traditional defense contractor that's bringing a certain piece. So, you know, it's a agreements officer determination on whether that piece or that process or whatever it is that small or non-traditional is bringing to the table meets the, you know, the definition, which I say that very loosely, of a significant, they're providing a significant portion of the work. So like I said before, it really just depends on, you know, every requirement is different. You know, the small business may bring something, you know, a process or something that the large, you know, doesn't have, you know, and this, or they have, you know, an expertise in a certain thing that the large business doesn't have. So, you know, it really is a case by case determination. But if the large doesn't have that, then they either have to go into a cost sharing environment with the government, or we cannot award an OTA to them. And that's all in the statute.
Great. And then do you have to reveal if they're in that cost sharing relationship? Like I'm thinking if one prototype was and one prototype wasn't, it'd be interesting to know that as a competitor. Is it public at that point, or is it all fair and even at that point?
Well, this is another area where OTAs are different than FAR-based contracts. There really is nothing that says that we have to, you know, we have to go back and, you know, advertise, you know, who was awarded, you know, or any of the particulars like we would in a FAR-based contract. You know, we do it, you know, within DISA because we think it's the right thing to do. You know, we'll let, you know, the other offers know, you know, whether they've, you know, if they have not been selected and why, but, you know, we don't have to do it. But like I said, we do because, you know, it just helps them prepare like for the next one, and it helps us get better solutions down the road for different requirements that we might have.
Sounds to me like that's very generous if you had 35 entries just on this one. So thank you very much. I think the online questions have slowed down and we're nearing the end of our time. Is there anything you or Ron want to say to wrap things up?
No, I just thank you for inviting us, and you know, we look forward to working with you down the road if and respond to our, you know, our request for white papers.
Well, thank you very much for coming and sharing your story. And I think from our group, we continuously hear that people want to learn more about the experience of alternative acquisitions. And this is a really positive one on a large scale. I think a lot of people think about OTAs or prototypes on small scales. So I think this is a great example of where you can really get some benefits, some really large benefits in security and cost savings using this OTA mechanism. So it was really unique, and you guys had some really great advice for acquisition professionals moving forward. So thank you very much. And I think with that, we will conclude. I think within the next couple of days, we normally send out an email with these slides in them. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.